Okay, so the first thing you have to accept is that this method of conversion is a very powerful tool that you will need to use throughout this year, and it's called the factor label method. You have to label the units in order for this to work. The units are the street signs. So let's start with number 2. I want to convert inches into millimeters. So what I always do first is I make my screen bigger, okay, and I say, alright, step 1, write down what you've been given every time. You cannot skip this step. You don't even have to think. You just say, well, I want to take 7, 4, 2, 6, and you have to write the label. Okay, so now that I've got that, I don't do any thinking at this point. All I've done is copy what I've seen. I'm going to multiply, draw a fraction line, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the label, hence factor label, I'm going to take that label and I'm going to write it down here, leaving myself room to write a number here. So I'm going to go ahead and put inches down here. Now what I have to do is I have to look at my list of conversions. Now keep in mind, I'm trying to get from inches to millimeters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here and I say, alright, I've got inches. So I could turn inches into, let's see, I could turn inches into feet, or I could turn inches into centimeters. Excuse me, into centimeters. I think I'm going to go with this one here. So I've shopped for the right conversion factor. So what I'll do now is I'll go here and say, all right, you know what, let's make this a little bit smaller here. It might be harder for me to write, but let's just try it here. All right, so what I've got here then is 1 inch, which I got from up here, is going to equal 2.5 centimeters. 2.54 centimeters. Now, the inches have gone away, so I'll just go ahead and say inches have gone away. You don't have to do that, I'm just pointing that out. So what I do now is I multiply again, I draw another fraction line. I'm going to take the centimeters, which I don't want, and put them in the basement here. Now I'm going to go. Now at this point, once I've put this here, that's when I go back up here and start shopping. So I'm going to shop for what I can turn centimeters into. I want to get to millimeters, so I go up here and I say, well, let's see, I could turn centimeters into meters. I could turn centimeters into inches. Well, I guess I'll turn centimeters into meters because that's at least staying in the metric system. So now the number is 100 goes with centimeters. So down here I see centimeters, so I'm going to write 100 centimeters equals 1 meter. That's what I got from up here. Now, centimeters have gone away. Again, you don't have to do that step there. And what I'm going to do now is I say, well, I don't think at this point. I look at the top and I say, I don't want meters, I want millimeters. Since I don't want meters, I'm going to put them in the basement. So I'm going to multiply, draw a line for a fraction. I'm going to take meters from here and put them down here. Now I'm going to go back up here and shop to see what I could turn them into. And it looks to me like I could turn, here you go, look at this. I can turn meters into millimeters. So I'm going to say, well, if I look here, it's 1 meter equals 1,000 millimeters. So 1 meter equals 1,000 millimeters. Now once I get the value on top that I didn't write it correctly, millimeters. Once I get on top what I want on top, at that point I say equals, and now I'm going to do my calculation. So what I'm going to simply do at this point is I'm going to start with this number here, I'm going to multiply it by this number, I'm going to divide it by this number, I'm going to multiply it by the top, divide by the bottom, multiply by the top, divide by the bottom, and I'm going to say equals. Let's see what I get. And that gives us 1, 8, 1.8620.4. Now the thing we have to remember is all throughout this school year in my class you have to remember you have to round for significant digits. In other words, you can't have any more precision in your answer than you had in your initial measurement. So the rule we use is this. We're going to simply look at how many significant figures we had in our initial measurement, which in this case is 4, and we're going to round our answer to 4. What we don't do is we don't allow the conversion factors to affect it, because the idea is these are defined values. There's no uncertainty in these values. The uncertainty lies in the 4th digit of this one. So we're going to round it to 4 significant figures. So let's just do that. If I round this to 4, that means I'm going to keep 1, 2, 3. I'm going to keep the 6. Since this is a 2, I'm going to leave this as 6, and I'm going to fill in with place-holding zeros. So it's going to be 1, 8, 8, 6. I need 2 place-holding zeros, millimeters. Let's do number 3. When I look at number 3, I see I have 18 pints. I start with this, I write it down, and I don't even let myself think. I'm just going to say 18 pints. I'm not going to think. I'm going to multiply. I'm going to draw a fraction line, and I'm going to put pints down below. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and say, all right, now I've got to see what I can turn pints into. So I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to shop around and say, what can I turn pints into? I could turn pints into ounces, or I could turn pints into quarts. And since I'm trying to get to, what am I trying to get to? Let's see, I'm trying to get to liters. Since I'm trying to get to liters, what would make most sense? I think what I'll do is I'll turn pints into quarts, quarts into gallons, and then gallons into liters. It can be tricky sometimes. It's like finding stepping stones across a stream. So let's just try this here. Alright, so how many pints? I see what it's going to be is 2 pints equals 1 quart. So I'll say 2 pints equals 1 quart. At this point I don't think. I draw a fraction line, and I put the quarts down below. And I say, what can I turn quarts into? I can turn quarts into gallons. So I'm going to put 4 quarts equals 1 gallon. I'm not going to think at this point. I'm going to multiply, draw a fraction line, and put the gallons down below. I'd like to turn gallons into liters. So I go, well, here you go. 1 gallon equals 3.8 liters. So I put 1 with a gallon, and I put 3.78 liters. And now once I have on top what I'm trying to convert to, I go ahead and say equals, and I multiply it through. So what I'm going to say is 18 times 1 divided by 2 times 1 divided by 4 times 3.78 divided by 1, and that's going to equal 8.505. Now that's 4 significant figures, but we're limited by our initial measurement to 2 significant figures. So that means I'm going to keep the 8, I'm going to keep the 5, and since that's a 0, I'm going to leave the 5 the way it is. So I'm going to round this to 8.5 liters. That's supposed to be an L. Alright, let's do number 7 this time. This is a little bit trickier. Now if we read it, what it says, if a sheet of paper is this many millimeters thick, how high is a stack this high? Well, really what I want to do is I want to know about this. I want to convert sheets of paper into feet. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to write the thing I want to convert. I want to convert 77492 sheets. And I don't want sheets, so I'll put it. So I'm going to multiply, and I'm going to put sheets in the basement. And I say, what can I convert sheets into? Now what's interesting here is I can turn this value here into a conversion factor. This is something we do a lot this year. If I measure something and I know, this many millimeters equals this much paper, I can make a conversion factor. So essentially what I can say is 1 sheet equals 0.11 millimeters. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to say one sheet, 0.11 millimeters. Now, I don't want millimeters, so I'm going to put them in the basement. What can I turn millimeters into? If I go up here, I see that I can turn millimeters into meters. Here it is. Millimeters can be turned into meters. So I'm going to say 1,000 of these equal one of these. I don't want meters, so I'm going to multiply and draw a fraction line. I'm trying to get to feet. Now, I don't think at this point, since meters are up above, I have to put meters down below. What can I turn meters into? Well, if I look up above, I can see I can turn meters into centimeters. So I'm going to say 1 meter equals 100 centimeters. I don't want centimeters, so I'm going to multiply and draw a fraction. And I'm going to put centimeters down below. And I can turn centimeters into inches, so I'm going to say 2.54 centimeters equals 1 inch. What? That's not a very good inch. Okay, inch. And I don't want inches, so I'll put inches down below, and I'll put feet up above. And I think most of us know that 1 foot equals 12 inches. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back through and I'm going to say 74492 times 1.1 divided by 1 times 1 divided by 1,000 times 100 divided by 1 times 1 divided by 2.54 times 1 divided by 12. And what does that equal? It turns out that equals 27.96627. Now remember, when we do our converting for significant figures, this is going to be a little bit different, and here's why. There is no uncertainty in a counted value. If I count out that many sheets, that's how many sheets there are. It's not like there could be a decimal more sheets. I either have this many sheets or I don't. The uncertainty in this case happens to be with the fact that we measured the thickness of the sheet of paper. So really, this is where our uncertainty lies, in our measurement of the thickness of a sheet of paper. So what we have is two significant figures. And so I'm going to round my value for two significant figures. And what that means then is I'm going to keep the 2, I'm going to keep the 7. Since this is 5 or greater, this one is going to be rounded up, and I'm going to record this value as 28 feet.